Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to give you 50 tips and tricks geared mostly toward beginner and intermediate players, as well as some of the lesser known Tarkov advice I've come across in my first few years playing this game, so if you're an advanced player, there might be something new for you as well. There are timestamps for each one in the description below, as well as a link to my Twitch channel if you'd like to catch one of my live streams. With that out of the way, let's dive right into it. This first one is something I wish I had learned a lot sooner. In the task tab, you have a separate inventory for all quest specific items, such as the bronze pocket watch for prapper or the golden zibbo for skier. When you survive a raid with any of these items, you can actually move them from the top section here, which is considered to be on your character still, to the bottom section, which is a safe stash for your task items. Now, more often than not, you'll end up turning these items in right away after extracting and not worrying about this. However, if you're on a particularly difficult task, such as delivery from the past, which requires you to pick up a folder on customs, then plant it on factory, you can actually offload that folder to your secure task inventory by selecting it and pressing the transfer button that shows up in the middle. This way you aren't forcing yourself to go immediately to factory in case you wanted to wait for backup or play a different map at the time. Just remember to transfer it back over to your PMC when you're ready to continue the task. Get in the habit of checking your corners all the time, even in the last moments of a raid when you're sure you're the last player, because you might be wrong and you never know who's watching or listening for you to walk into their crosshairs. Oh! Piece of shit. When you're just starting out, there's a ton of items you'll need to examine. Instead of right-clicking on each item and clicking examine, you can just hover over them and click the middle mouse button. This also works for folding and unfolding stocks on weapons both in and out of raid, which can make looting faster and more efficient. Once you finish examining something, you'll have a little green handbook notification stacking up at the bottom. If it bothers you, just click on it to get rid of it. Stacking the chest rig of dead players and scavs inside your backpack can net you extra looting space, as most take up fewer slots than they have inside. In this example, the Wartech rig takes up 9 slots but holds 10, plus I'll have the extra rig to use or sell after. There are many chest rigs in Tarkov that gain you even more extra inventory space than this one, so always be on the lookout. If your current rig is insured, you could always toss it in a bush and wear the new one as well. Just be sure to find a spot that's safe to transfer your magazines and meds over first. Speaking of looting safely, when you open a loot container such as a weapon box, duffel bag, or jacket, there's a split second between when you press F to loot and when your character begins looting the container, where you can queue up a movement command. You can use this moment to take a couple steps out of a potentially busy hallway, to crouch, or to even go prone as long as you leave your character enough space to do so. This can help make you much harder to spot while you're vulnerable searching inside a container. Unless you absolutely need it, keep your melee slot open during most raids. This not only frees up a little weight on your PMC, but any melee weapon you loot from a dead scav can go right into that slot rather than taking up valuable backpack space, and you'll actually keep it even if you die in that raid, so it's just free money. If you're lucky, you might find some valuable melee weapons as you go, such as the antique axe, and this will even work with the Red Rebel ice pick if you manage to kill the scav boss on woods. You can quick bind usable items from your pockets or chest rig to numbers 4 through 0 on your keyboard by either hovering over them and pressing the desired key, or by clicking and dragging them to the hotbar below. While most people use this to bind med kits and painkillers for faster use in a firefight, you can also bind small weapons that fit into your chest rig as well. One of my personal favorites is to bring this MP5 Kurz in my rig as a backup when I'm sniping, because without an extra weapon in my secondary slot, my profile is much smaller when prone, and this will also keep that slot open for later in the raid when I'm ready to loot a larger rifle to take back home. On this same note, binding your grenades is useful too. If you just press G to throw a grenade, you'll get a quick overhand throw. If you press the corresponding hotkey you set the grenade to instead, you'll pull it out and hold it in your hand until you're ready to do a slightly softer throw. This can be useful for lightly tossing it over nearby barriers so you don't overthrow. You can blind fire up over short cover by holding Alt and W. You can also blind fire to the left by holding Alt plus S. What's really cool is you can actually throw a grenade by pressing G while holding either of these positions to chuck one around a corner or up over sandbags without exposing yourself. The order in which grenades are thrown when pressing G is pockets first, left to right, then chest rig, top left to bottom right. This is important to remember so you don't end up starting the long animation of throwing a smoke grenade when you mean to throw a quick flash or frag grenade. Always wear a face cover. Your big bright globe of a face is really easy to spot in darker areas, so even if you're poor and have to cover it up with a used gym sock, do what you have to do. It'll save your life more often than you know. Glasses actually do more than make you look cool as well. They actually greatly reduce water droplets that obscure your vision in rainy weather. If you're planning to do longer raids where you expect to be mostly outdoors, consider buying a cheap pair of glasses from Ragman to make your life easier. If you want to sell a gun, you'll get the most money out of it by disassembling it and selling everything you can from it to skier and the remainder to mechanic. In fact, if you sell anything you can to skier, followed by therapist second and mechanic third, you'll get the most for any pile of loot you're looking to get rid of, provided it doesn't sell for more on the flea market, of course, which we'll get to a little bit later. Selling to any of the other traders won't get you the best price, but it'll help you level them up, so I only recommend selling to anyone other than these three as needed. You can free look by holding the middle mouse button down, which can be useful when running from cover to cover to track your enemy or just to keep an eye out for general awareness. You can also use free look to take sweet screenshots. Just look down, then free look up to get your weapon or hands out of the way until you're in just the right spot. You can lean left and right while prone with Q and E respectively. You can also lean extra far to the right by pressing Alt while holding E. This might open up an unexpected angle on your enemy, and you also get a massive bonus to recoil control while prone. You can adjust your crouch height by holding C and scrolling your mouse wheel up and down to get some really nice keyhole shots on your enemy that you might otherwise not be able to achieve. Suppressors make it harder for the enemy to pinpoint your position at the onset of an ambush, especially at range, but they also reduce muzzle flash and reduce the smoke coming off your weapon, which will keep your line of sight cleaner. This makes them great for darker maps like Interchange or any night raid where a muzzle flash can give you away faster, and is also great for close quarters combat such as on Factory where smoke can impair your vision just long enough to give your enemy the edge. Not everyone can afford to suppress every weapon at first, but it's something to keep in mind while planning your loadout. You can loot each and every drawer and file cabinets, including the tipped over ones, and they can have some really great stuff in them like labs key cards, rollers, valuable flea market trade items, gas analyzers for your early quests, keys, loose money, and more. You can actually loot these little pink suitcases currently found mostly on Interchange and labs, which seem to have a similar loot table to duffel bags. When looting, you can actually drop items onto the icon of the container you want to put it into instead of manually placing it into your inventory. This can prove to be a lot faster since the game will prioritize everything towards the top and do some of the Tetris work for you. If you want to loot a little faster, Alt-clicking an item will immediately equip it to your player if the slot is available, such as with this VPO 215 here. Control-clicking an item will move it straight into your inventory instead. If you start by running the pockets and backpacks of your kills first before doing this type of thing, you'll be a super fast looter in no time. You actually earn bonus experience points the first time you pick up anything in raid that you haven't already picked up in that same raid. Whenever you see an item you haven't picked up before, take the time to control click it into your inventory, then just control click it again to move it back or discard it if you don't want it. You'll receive some bonus XP at the bottom. In this clip you can see I get some bonus XP for picking up the capacitors because I haven't found those yet, but no bonus XP when I pick up the CPU fan because I've already found one this raid. Take the time to learn a hidden stash route. Currently Customs, Shoreline, and Interchange have tons of these, and Woods has some as well. Hidden stashes are in the ground on these maps and can contain nearly any trade item or weapon in the game that can fit inside a 3x5 space, as well as some other really cool stuff. There are currently two types, a small barrel buried in the ground or a wooden pallet with pine needles on top. I have a video on this channel that shows a nice looting path you can take around the mall on Interchange to hit many of these, which I'll link at the end of this video, and I highly recommend getting familiar with where these are so you can fill your backpack as you move through these maps. Speaking of maps, take the time to get to know them. It'll be nearly impossible for you to survive a raid if you don't know where your extracts are before going in. There's a link in the description below to this page on Gamepedia.com where you can find multiple user-made detailed maps. Find the one you're going to before you actually load in and keep it visible to you on a second monitor, tablet, cell phone, or even print them out if you have to so you can reference these in raid until you know them well. Many of these maps will also point out scavenger spawns, loot areas, possible boss spawns, and more. You may also find it easier to run one map over and over until you know it well before venturing to others. On that note, running your player scavenger whenever the cooldown is ready is not only a great way to learn the maps without risking your PMC's gear, but it's also a great way to bolster your personal economy with some extra loot when you survive. If you're really desperate, you can even spawn into factory and just make your way to an extract. There are only 3 scav extracts on factory, and you always have 2 of them open, so you might find that easier to learn. You could also use your scav to run some of those hidden stash routes we went over earlier, and as you get more confident, you could try to get into some fights to get some personal firefight experience with your free loadout. When you choose any map to play, a minimum and maximum player count is displayed to the right. This number indicates the amount of total PMCs, including you, that can spawn into a given raid, though it does not include the player scavengers that'll spawn a bit later into the match. On this same screen, you can also choose 2 different times of day to join. 0500 is dawn in Tarkov, and 2130 is dusk, so keep that in mind if you're choosing a raid that's darker or about to be. Factories times are static because it's indoors and there is always 1 light and 1 nearly pitch black choice, and labs is always the same because it's underground. There are usually fewer players in night raids, so it can be a good option when trying to get tasks done, but you'll also want to bring night vision or at least run a map you know very well to avoid getting potentially lost. Be prepared. Make sure you have enough meds and ammo for the map you're running. If you're heading to factory where quick PvP is nearly inevitable, bring an extra mag or 2. If you're heading over to customs, woods, or interchange where there is a paid vehicle extract, bring some extra rubles with you to pay for it, especially if you have room in a wallet, documents case, or sick case that you may already be bringing. Having a plan is important, whether you're working on tasks, trying to hit a certain loot spot, or just trying to survive a scav raid to get some much needed funds over to your PMC. Having a goal before you enter a map can mean the difference between decisive action or just dirtling around until you get yourself killed. Always have some type of goal in mind. Take some time to learn the ammo. You certainly don't have to memorize every round, but I'm going to link a really well-made ammo chart in the description made by No Food After Midnight. Here you can look up each round in the game by caliber and see how it measures up versus each armor class in the game. Typically you should expect regular AI scavengers to be wearing anything from no armor to class 3 with the occasional class 4, and your typical mid-gear player will usually have class 3 to 4, with some of the most geared players wearing classes 5 and 6 chest armor. Finding a round that's both effective and within your budget is important, since the damage dealt in Escape from Tarkov is entirely dependent on the round fired versus the armor of the target, and not at all dependent on the weapon shooting said round. This is a lengthy topic, so we won't get into it here, but I do have a separate video highlighting several budget options you can run that are effective in any scenario, which I'll link at the end of this video. Take some time to learn what sells on the flea market at a premium by right-clicking something and clicking filter by item. Always compare this with what the traders are offering you though, as you might get a better deal selling straight to them while avoiding flea market fees and raising trader reputation. Remember our priority order from earlier. Selling to skier first, then therapist, then mechanic will get you the best price. There are some great filters to get accustomed to on the flea market. If you click the cog wheel toward the top left, you can remove all these pesky barter trades for good. I find that most of these are a scam anyway, and I highly advise you to just deal in straight rubles until you really know what you're doing. Make sure you click the price filter at the top as well so your lowest prices are showing first. If you're scrolling through for some medical supplies or armor and want to make sure you buy one that hasn't been used up yet, set the condition to 100% and you'll only see full medical supplies and brand new armor and helmets. If you don't mind paying less for something slightly dinged up, you could always set it to 85% or whatever you're comfortable with. Linked search is a powerful tool. Say you have this SV98 suppressor but can't figure out how to get it onto the weapon. It's pretty hard to remember every little thread adapter and muzzle brake in the game, but if you right-click the suppressor and do a linked search, it'll bring up all the attachments it can interact with. Once you think you've found the part you need, you can confirm it'll attach to the weapon by double-clicking it to inspect, then mouse over the down arrow on the right side of the inspection screen to see the names of every weapon in your stash this item can interact with. Now, if you wanted to find a scope like this one but forgot the name, or just want to browse what other options there are, you can run a linked search from the weapon itself, and this time it'll give you every result that can attach to the top rail of this rifle. You can further filter these results on the left side to find the type of sight you're looking for. Keep toying around with the linked search on other weapons in your inventory and you'll get used to it in no time. If you've ever noticed a little white dot appear in the center of your screen, that's actually your character's perception skill letting you know there's an object nearby you can interact with. In this case, I could clearly see the jailbreak on the shelf there, but as you walk by shelves or through bushes, keep an eye out for this little dot since it means you probably just walked over some loot. You can actually shoot out most of the lights in EFT. This is especially nice when you have a partially destroyed one like this one making tons of noise nearby. If you're running a night vision raid, you'll especially want to blow these out in your area to keep a visual advantage. Speaking of noise, you may want to invest in a headset since they amplify quieter noises like footsteps and dampen louder noises like gunshots. I find these especially important if you're playing solo, since you know any footstep you hear is a threat. Each of the headsets and EFTs sound a bit different, so just try them out and see which one you like best. Marked rooms can have some of the best loot in the game, such as weapon cases, key tools, documents bags, money cases, grenade boxes, and more. There's one on customs shown here, and 2 in the military reserve, all of which require keys. These keys have a limited number of uses, but are still relatively cheap to pick up on the flea market. While you should get to know these locations as you explore the maps and always check them, just be aware they can be highly contested by other players. There is also one other marked circle on woods, which is out in the open and therefore doesn't require a key. Don't skip the little containers like jackets, duffel bags, and toolboxes. They can spawn some really good stuff to sell on the flea market or upgrade your hideout, and jackets have an especially high chance of spawning keys. You probably know that pressing R will reload your weapon, and double tapping R will do a combat reload, which is slightly faster at the expense of dropping your mag on the ground. But if you hold R and move your mouse wheel, you can manually select which mag is reloaded at the top. This can be really nice on AKs and M4s if you want to start a raid with a couple mags of nice armor penetrating ammo for those early PMC encounters, then switch to a different colored mag with cheaper ammunition to farm scavs later in the raid. There are a few weapons in EFT that have the option to be top-loaded as well as switching mags, and you can choose between these by having some loose ammunition in either your pockets or rig. When you pick up a new weapon in raid, you can do a mag check with Alt-T. If you don't like the ammo type and want to remove the round in the chamber without making a lot of noise by discharging it, you can do a chamber check with Shift-T. This will reveal the cartridge in your weapon when you inspect it. If you then take the mag out, you can quietly remove the chambered round. You'll also get a pretty sweet animation in doing so. This can be especially useful on your scav runs, as you'll commonly find AKs with 545 PS ammo in them and loose boxes of better ammo like 545 BT. Remember to keep that ammo chart we showed earlier bookmarked somewhere so you can reference it if you're unsure which ammo to use. The hideout is definitely worth taking the time to explore and build up, and there are tons of ways to make money in it. In this example here, I'm crafting 80 SNB sniper rounds at the workbench using one of the red gunpowders, which are currently listed for around 27k, then selling these rounds at about 550 rubles each for a profit of around 17,000 rubles each time. It isn't much, but it adds up fast, and you can do something similar in the lavatory, the kitchen, and the med station as well. Later on, you can also build a Bitcoin farm, which basically generates money for you 24/7, as well as a scav case where you can pay the scavs to bring you back some sweet loot. Everything generated in the hideout has the found and raid tag on it, which means you can resell it on the flea market or use it to redeem for any quests. Take the time to check out what each module does and what parts you'll need for your next upgrades so you can keep that in the back of your mind as you play through your raids. There are a lot of ways to tell the AI apart from player scavengers. If you see someone with a gun on their back, it's another player since the regular AI can only carry one weapon. As you continue to play the game, you'll get familiar with where the AI scavengers patrol, and it'll help you identify player scavs more quickly when you see them in an unexpected area. The surefire way to tell though is when you're looting a dead player scav, he'll have a pouch slot just below the backpack slot on his body, which is where your secure container would go if you were able to have one as a scav. When looting, if you're in the habit of skipping searching through the chest rig because you're used to the AI only having ammo and mags in there, make sure you do take the time to loot it on a player scav, because players move things around in their inventory all the time and you never know what'll be in there. Your PMC is a hungry boy and you'll have to keep his energy and hydration up. This will rise naturally over time out of raid, so you can always run your scav while you're waiting for some of that regeneration to occur, but you can also eat certain foods down to 1 durability left without reducing their value. Sugar, for example, has 70 durability, and you can eat it all the way down to 1 of 70 for a big energy boost and still use it to craft condensed milk or moonshine in your hideout. If it has the found and raid tag, you'll still be able to sell it at full value on the flea market because other players are just looking to craft with it as well. Aquamare is another great one to have a few of in your stash, since you can use it several times to fully refill your hydration until it's used up. If you're going to eat or drink anything in raid, make sure you double click it to inspect and check to see how much energy or hydration it'll give you or take away. It's definitely possible to get yourself killed eating too many croutons or oat flakes without having a drink on hand. You can bind up to 12 voice commands and hand signals by double tapping Y, then right click on the one you want and choose F1 through F12. You can actually take the time to do this in an offline raid and it'll save over to your regular raid so you don't have to risk getting killed while setting these up. Separately, you can bind hand signals on your player scav as well. You can only use the mumble command for voice, but the hand signals actually work with the AI. If you give the nearby AI the follow me command, they'll actually follow you around within a certain radius. Sadly, you can't keep them with you throughout a large map, but they'll hang out near you within their patrol zone, which can help protect you from PMCs and traitor player scavs, since they'll act as a watchdog and shoot those players on sight.
Marvelous!
Take your time. You may feel pressured to run around from location to location, especially if you're new. Slow down, take your time. Whenever I enter a new building, I get into a side room immediately and listen for at least a few seconds. You'd be surprised how often you hear a couple footsteps, a fast turn, a door unlocking, or something to indicate a nearby threat that you might have missed if you hadn't paused to listen. If there aren't any immediate threats, take a moment to repack your magazines, hydrate, reorganize your inventory, or whatever else you need to do before moving on. Try practicing in offline mode for a bit. When you complete an offline raid, your character is reset to how they were when you went in. Since you can't lose anything, try out your best gear, bring a bunch of meds and ammo, and maybe try cranking the scavenger difficulty up or trying out horde mode. Horde mode will make the scavs spawn in huge amounts throughout the entire raid, so you may want to try this on factory first, which is the smallest map if you have a slower PC. This can help you get a lot faster in your combat decision making and with your shooting in general. You can also enable bosses in offline mode for the maps that have one. You can randomize weather conditions or turn on Scav War, which will make all the scavs hostile to each other, creating a massive war zone. Tagged and cursed will make every scav on the map actively seek you out no matter where you are. Offline mode can be great for any skill level player though, if you just want to try out some new gear or maybe some risky jump spot you just learned about. Just don't hang out in there too long, since you won't get any actual progression on your PMC until you get into some real raids. Join a Discord community, or several even. These are a great way to find people to play with or have quick questions answered. If you'd like to join my Discord community, there's a link in the description below. We've got a lot of great people in there and plenty of Tarkov add-ons with up-to-the-minute news from Battlestate Games, and everyone in there plays EFT. If you're not sure where else to look, I guarantee your favorite streamer or streamers have Discord communities as well. Most of these folks probably have links to their Discord in their Twitch panels, and you can always ask around on Reddit or in EFT Facebook groups as well. Before we get to number 50, I just want to say thank you for checking out this video. If it helped you out, please give it a like, share it with your buddies, and consider subscribing to the channel for plenty more EFT guides and content. I also stream raids on Twitch most days, link to that in the description below. Feel free to come hang out or ask me your Tarkov questions live. If you purchased your copy of EFT before January 7th of 2020, you should have a Christmas gift waiting for you to claim in your EFT profile page. To get it, head to escapefromtarkov.com and log into your profile at the top right of the page. Once you're in, scroll down just a little and you'll see this receive button. Click it and you'll see a message when you next log into the game with some awesome free stuff. If you already claimed your Christmas gift last wipe cycle, try it again. The developers allow us to claim these gifts once per wipe cycle. This year, the gifts included an item case, a money case, and a meds case, as well as a P90 and an FN57 with mags and ammo. These gifts change every year, but they've all been really great so far. If you missed this year's gift, you'll get the next one for sure. Thank you for watching and good luck out there.